Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Elise. I'm 39 years old. And I'm about to tell you something I never imagined admitting, not even to myself. For most of my adult life, I thought I knew who I was. I was a wife, a mother, a partner. I built a life with Paul, my husband, for almost 15 years. We had the kind of marriage people admired from a distance, steady, functional, and, for a time, even passionate. We blended our families after both coming from difficult divorces, raised his son Liam together, and built something resembling stability out of the wreckage of our separate pasts. But over the past year, something shifted. And I don't know if it started with Paul or with me. At first, it was small, easy to ignore. Paul would lean in to kiss me goodnight and his lips felt foreign, almost. I would close my eyes, hoping muscle memory would trick me into feeling what I used to feel. But instead of warmth, there was only a kind of polite familiarity. The softness that once made me melt now left me cool. His hand would slip around my waist, fingers pressing gently, but instead of pulling me closer, it felt like a quiet request for reassurance. We're still okay, right? I gave him that reassurance every night. I gave him my body when he reached for me in the dark, even when desire felt like a distant memory. I let him believe that nothing had changed because I was terrified to admit that everything had. We used to laugh. God, we used to laugh. I would make a stupid joke while we cooked dinner together, and he'd press me up against the counter, his breath hot against my neck. "Your trouble," he'd whisper, and I'd pretend to protest while my body shivered with anticipation. Now, we eat in silence. His phone lights up the table more than his eyes do. I try. I really do. I wear the silk nightgown he used to love. I lean into him on the couch, resting my head on his shoulder, but his arm feels stiff, like he's performing affection rather than feeling it. And when I glance up at him, his face is slack, his eyes glazed, as if he's already somewhere else. There's no anger between us. No shouting matches, no cruel words. In some ways, I wish there were. At least anger would mean something. Instead, it's like we're dissolving quietly, a slow unraveling neither of us knows how to stop. I think the worst part is how invisible I've started to feel. Like I've become an echo in my own marriage. He sees me, but he doesn't see me. My needs, my desires, they drift past him like smoke he can't quite grasp. And yet, I've stayed. Out of loyalty. Out of fear. Out of habit. But everything truly shifted the night Liam came home for the summer. He stood in the doorway like a man I barely recognized, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying himself with a quiet confidence that made me catch my breath before I even realized it. His smile was warm, familiar, but there was a weight to him now. A presence. The boy I'd helped raise was suddenly not a boy. I opened the door, expecting to greet my stepson. Instead, for a fleeting, forbidden second, I saw a man. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, awake. It terrified me. Because as much as I tried to pretend otherwise, that moment, that sharp breath I took when I saw him, was the moment I knew something inside me had already begun to break. Paul came home late again last night. The emergency room had been swamped, he said. Another double shift, another 12 hours in that sterile chaos he somehow thrives in. His face was gray with exhaustion, but he still smiled as he walked through the door, tossing his keys onto the counter and pulling me into his arms. "Missed you, baby," he murmured, his hand sliding down my back. I let him hold me, my arms resting limply around his waist, as if my body belonged to someone else. His cologne was faint under the scent of antiseptic and sweat, a combination that once felt heroic to me. When we first met, I was drawn to his purpose, to his calm under pressure. The way he spoke about saving lives made my heart swell with pride and admiration. But now, as he held me, I only felt small. Swallowed. His lips found mine, warm but urgent, and his hand slipped beneath my shirt, fingers skimming my skin with practiced confidence. My body reacted out of habit, muscles tightening, breath hitching. But my mind wandered. I thought about the dinner I left half-eaten. The text Liam had sent earlier, thanking me for the care package I left in his room. The way his voice had deepened since last summer, how easily we'd fallen into conversation, as if no time had passed. Paul pulled back slightly, studying my face. "You okay?" he asked, his thumb tracing my jawline. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just tired." "You need to let me take care of you more," he whispered, his tone dipping into something more suggestive. "You've been working too hard again." I bit my lip, fighting the familiar wave of frustration. He always thinks it's about stress. About work. About anything except what it's really about. "I'm fine, Paul." "You don't seem fine." His hand moved again, more insistent now. "Let me help you relax." And there it was, the pattern we'd fallen into. He equated physical touch with closeness. Sex was his language of love. And I used to speak it fluently. But lately, I needed more than his hands on my skin. I needed him to see me. To ask real questions. To notice how lonely I've been even while lying right beside him. But every time I tried to explain, the words turned into fog. "Paul, not tonight, okay?" I said softly, stepping back. He blinked, his smile faltering. The rejection landed heavy between us. He wasn't angry, he never got angry, but I saw the shadow cross his face. The disappointment. The confusion. "All right," he said finally, forcing a chuckle. "You know I can't resist you when you're in that old shirt." He was trying to lighten the moment, but the hollowness in his voice betrayed him. I opened my mouth to say something, anything to bridge the gap, but nothing came. Instead, I busied myself clearing the dishes from the counter, as if wiping away crumbs could scrub out the ache between us. Behind me, I heard him sigh. "Elise," he said gently, "I just want us to feel close again. That's all." I froze, gripping the edge of the counter. "But I don't feel close when you touch me like that." "I feel close when you listen. When you notice. When you see the parts of me that are quietly breaking." But I couldn't say it. Not without risking the fragile peace we were both pretending to protect. Instead, I whispered, "I know." The silence that followed was suffocating. Later that night, I lay awake, listening to his steady breathing beside me. I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight with unshed tears. I thought of Liam again, of the way he looked at me during dinner last week when Paul was working late. The way he actually listened when I talked about my new project at the gallery. The ease of our laughter. The warmth in his eyes that felt uncomplicated. It scared me. How natural it felt to talk to him. How alive I felt in his presence. I closed my eyes and tried to shake the guilt creeping in, but one bitter truth kept circling my mind: I shouldn't feel more seen by my stepson than by my husband. It happened again this morning. I was in the kitchen, barefoot, making coffee, the quiet ritual that's become my only true moment of peace lately. The early summer light spilled through the windows, catching in the strands of my messy bun. I was savoring the brief stillness before Paul would wake up, before I'd have to start pretending again. But he woke up early today. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. Then came his arms, warm, heavy, wrapping around me from behind. His chest pressed against my back, his breath brushing my ear. "Morning, beautiful." I smiled politely, my hands frozen around the coffee pot. I could feel his bare skin against my thin robe, the eagerness in his embrace. His hand slid down my waist, gripping my hips gently before slipping a bit lower. I stiffened. He noticed. Of course he noticed. What's wrong? He whispered, his voice soft, almost pleading. You're so tense. I started, grasping for words. I'm not fully awake yet. He chuckled, kissing my neck, lingering a little too long. I can wake you up properly, if you let me. His hand cupped my hip more firmly, and my stomach twisted. I want this. I really do. But his touch feels like pressure now, not comfort. An expectation I can't seem to meet. Paul, I said, trying to keep my voice light, can I just have my coffee first? Please. He let out a breath, somewhere between amusement and disappointment, and pulled away slowly. Of course, he said, masking the rejection with a forced grin. Coffee first. Always coffee first. I poured my mug with trembling hands, hoping he wouldn't see it. But of course he did. He always sees the surface. Never underneath. He started, then stopped, rubbing the back of his neck. I feel like you're pulling away from me lately. I froze. My chest tightened. Please don't do this now. I'm not, I said automatically, forcing my voice to sound reassuring. I'm just tired. That's always your answer, Elise. His voice was calm, but I heard the hurt threaded beneath. You're always tired. Or distracted. Or stressed. I bit my lip. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me what's going on, he said softly. I miss you. The tenderness in his voice made my stomach churn. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. And I didn't know how to fix what was broken. I didn't even know where to start. Before I could respond, he closed the distance again, this time cupping my face with both hands. His thumbs stroked my cheeks as he leaned in for a kiss, slow, deliberate, meant to be intimate. I let him kiss me. I always do. But inside, I was recoiling. My lips moved out of obligation, not desire. I counted the seconds, willing myself to feel something. Anything. The warmth I used to feel when his mouth met mine was gone. Replaced by a dull emptiness I couldn't explain. He pulled back slightly, searching my face. See, he whispered. We're still us. I smiled weakly, guilt rising in my throat like bile. He didn't see it. He never does. And then, as if to reward what he thought was a breakthrough, his hand slid down again, this time giving my backside a playful slap. The same way he used to when we were first dating. I flinched, my shoulders tensing involuntarily. He paused, his expression flickering. Sorry, he said quickly. He trailed off, his voice breaking. I looked down at my coffee, blinking back tears. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It all unraveled at dinner. Paul had made reservations at that Italian place I used to love, the one with dim lighting, soft music, and little corner booths that offered a false sense of privacy. I knew he was trying. I saw the effort in his eyes, the hope. And that only made it worse. Surprise, he said as we slid into the booth, smiling like a man who believed he was saving something already lost. Thank you, I managed, my voice thin but polite. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. His thumb traced small circles against my knuckles. It's been a while since we did this. Just us. I nodded, staring down at the flickering candle between us. My stomach twisted. I wanted to appreciate it. I wanted to feel grateful. But underneath it all was this rising tide, a weight I'd been carrying for months, pressing harder against my chest with every forced smile, every misunderstood touch. The waiter arrived, breaking the tension momentarily. We ordered. Made small talk. He told me about a difficult patient, a complicated surgery. I nodded along, offering the right words at the right times. My responses felt automatic, rehearsed. "And how's the gallery?" he asked, finally turning the conversation to me. "It's fine," I said quietly. "The summer exhibit is coming together." He smiled like that was enough. Like those 2 sentences covered the entirety of my world. I swallowed hard, feeling my throat tighten. "Elise," he said gently. "I know things have felt off lately. And I don't want to push you, but I need to know, are we okay?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The words tangled together inside me: guilt, resentment, grief. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for my water. "We're okay," I whispered. I paused, searching for a safe word. "I'm tired." Paul's jaw tightened. "You keep saying that. But it feels like you're not here anymore. Like I'm losing you." The candlelight shimmered in my blurry vision. My chest heaved. The dam inside me cracked. "I don't know what you want from me," I snapped, louder than I intended. Paul flinched, his eyes narrowing in confusion. "I want you, Elise." "You don't want me," I said, my voice breaking. "You want sex. You want everything to be like it was without even seeing how far we've drifted." "That's not fair," he said, his voice low, trying to control the rising tension. "I've been trying. Paul, every time you touch me, it feels like you're trying to fix something without even asking me what's wrong. I don't want to be fixed like that." The table fell silent around us. The nearby clinking of silverware and murmured conversations felt deafening against our raw, exposed words. Paul looked away, shaking his head, his jaw working. "I don't know how else to show you I love you." Tears finally spilled onto my cheeks, hot and sharp. "By seeing me, Paul. By actually seeing me." My voice cracked. "Not just my body. Not just at night. I've been screaming inside and you keep trying to quiet it with your hands." His eyes glistened, but his face hardened. "So what? You don't want me to touch you at all anymore?" "That's not it," I whispered, my voice small again. "I don't even know what I want anymore." He fell silent, retreating into that cold distance he always used when he didn't understand me. The space between us and that little booth felt like miles. In my mind, an image flashed, of Liam standing in our doorway just a few weeks ago. The unexpected flutter in my stomach. The spark of being noticed. It made my shame burn hotter. How did I get here? I wiped my face, mortified by my outburst. People were glancing now, curious stares grazing my skin. My heart pounded, and a cold sweat gathered at the nape of my neck. Why couldn't I just be grateful? Why couldn't I want what he was offering? I hated myself in that moment, for hurting him, for feeling this way, for wanting more. For everything. And yet, beneath the guilt, the quiet question pulsed louder than ever: why does everything have to turn into sex? The house has been so quiet lately. It's been 3 weeks since that night at the restaurant. 3 weeks since my voice cracked, since his eyes clouded with pain. Since we both realized how far we've slipped from each other. Since then, we've been performing the bare minimum: polite greetings, logistical conversations, shared responsibilities. But the warmth is gone. The touch is gone. And now, the silence has settled like a heavy fog between us. I catch myself watching him when he isn't looking. Paul sits on the edge of the bed some nights, staring at the floor with his shoulders slumped. His hands hang uselessly between his knees, as if he's waiting for instructions that never come. The man who once commanded entire trauma rooms now seems lost in his own home. When our eyes accidentally meet, he offers a soft, sad smile, the kind people give each other at funerals. There's no anger in him. Just confusion. And hurt. And that almost makes it worse. I want to reach for him sometimes. I want to take his hand, press my forehead against his chest, and tell him that I miss him. That I don't know what's wrong with me. That I hate how cold I've become. But my body freezes every time I try. The words clog my throat like thorns. At dinner last night, we sat across from each other in the soft yellow light of the kitchen, eating quietly. The clinking of forks against plates was the only sound. He finally broke the silence. Liam called today. Said he might stop by this weekend. My stomach fluttered at the mention of Liam's name, followed immediately by guilt so sharp it made my face flush. That's nice, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Paul nodded, looking down at his plate. He said you've been helping him with his project. I swallowed. Yeah. Just a little. His photography series. Paul smiled faintly. He always lights up when he talks about you. My breath caught. Was that a flicker of suspicion in his voice? Or was I just hearing what I feared most? His eyes held nothing accusatory, only sadness. Deep, layered sadness. He's not the villain, I reminded myself. He never was. He's a good man. A kind man. He's been a steady partner, a loving father to Liam, and a provider who's carried more weight than I probably ever fully saw. And I have been slipping through his fingers while he stands there, trying to catch me with hands that were never trained for this kind of wound. The problem isn't him. It's me. And yet, knowing that doesn't make it easier to feel what I used to feel. Some nights, I lie awake and remember the early years, when Paul would surprise me with late-night takeout, when we couldn't keep our hands off each other, when even brushing past him in the hallway sent tiny sparks up my spine. I miss missing him like that. I miss myself. I ache for the ease we once had, but every attempt to rekindle it feels forced now, like we're mimicking a version of us that no longer exists. The weight of my guilt feels unbearable. And yet, under that guilt, there's still that quiet, dangerous pull, towards something else. Toward someone else. Toward the feeling I had when Liam smiled at me in the doorway that afternoon. I don't know if I'm still capable of choosing the safe road. As I lay in bed beside Paul's quiet, steady breathing, I stared at the ceiling and whispered silently to myself, do I try again? Or finally let go? It happened on a Tuesday evening, one of those ordinary, fragile nights where nothing dramatic was supposed to happen. Paul was sitting on the couch, his laptop closed, the TV murmuring softly in the background. I stood in the doorway of the living room for a while, watching him in the dim light. His face looked tired. Older, maybe. Or maybe I was only just seeing the weight he'd been carrying all along. I took a breath, forcing my feet forward. Paul, I said softly. He looked up immediately, surprised. Hey. I sat down beside him, leaving only a small space between us. The silence stretched. We need to talk, I whispered. He nodded, his eyes careful. Guarded. I stared down at my hands, my fingers twisting together nervously. I've been distant. And I've hurt you. He let out a long breath. I don't know how to reach you anymore, Elise. I felt the sting in my chest. I don't know how to be reached, I admitted. My voice broke on the last word. It's not that I don't love you. I do. But I don't feel like me anymore. And I don't know how to get back to her. Paul's jaw tensed, his eyes glistening. I miss her too. We both sat there for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing against us. I know I made it worse, he finally said, voice tight. I thought, if I could just pull you closer physically, everything else would follow. But maybe you needed something else. I needed to feel seen, I whispered. He nodded slowly, his voice cracking. I should have listened sooner. Tears blurred my vision. My throat ached from the pressure of holding it all in for so long. Tentatively, Paul reached for my hand, not possessively, not with expectation. Just a simple gesture. I let him take it. His thumb moved gently over my knuckles, as if memorizing them all over again. We sat like that in the quiet, the distance between us shrinking for the first time in months. He finally whispered, "Do you think we can find our way back?" I stared at him, the man who had stood beside me all these years. My heart ached with a strange mixture of hope and grief. "I want to try," I said honestly. "But I don't know if that's enough." He gave a small, sad smile. "Trying's more than we've been doing." Carefully, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. There was no hunger in it. No urgency. Just warmth. Grief. Love. We stayed there for a while, leaning into each other, neither speaking. Later that night, as we both lay in bed, not touching, but not as far apart, I felt the unfamiliar flicker of something that hadn't visited me in a long time, a fragile beginning. You want to know the hardest part? It wasn't the silence. It wasn't the distance. It wasn't even the ache of feeling unseen while living under the same roof as someone who used to feel like my entire world. The hardest part was admitting to myself that love isn't always enough. At least, not the kind we're taught to believe in. I used to think desire was simple, chemistry, attraction, that electric pull. And for a long time, Paul and I had that. God, did we have that? His hands on my waist, his lips on my neck, his heartbeat syncing with mine, it felt like everything I had ever dreamed of. I thought we were safe. I thought we were unbreakable. But then life happened. Quietly, relentlessly. The gallery. His long hospital shifts. The endless balancing act. The little hurts we never fully talked through. The slow erosion of small moments we stopped noticing. And somehow, without even realizing it, I drifted from him. Or maybe I drifted from myself first. That's the part no one prepares you for, the quiet fading. The way desire changes when emotional hunger goes unmet. The way touch, once intoxicating, starts to feel like obligation when your heart has gone hungry for too long. Paul kept reaching for me with his body, believing that was how we could fix it. But I wasn't there anymore. And the more he tried, the more I withdrew, until even simple things like a kiss or a playful touch made me want to crawl out of my own skin. I hated myself for it. I hated seeing his confusion, his sadness. I hated being the one to break what we'd built. And yes, there was Liam. His presence was never supposed to mean anything more than family. But somehow, in his ease, in his attentiveness, I saw a version of myself reflected back that I hadn't seen in years, vibrant, interesting, desired. The way he listened, the way his eyes lit up when I spoke, it terrified me how much I longed for that simple recognition. Not lust. Not temptation. Just being seen. That scared me more than anything Paul could have done. Because it forced me to realize how deeply lonely I had become. But here's what I've learned: intimacy isn't built in bedrooms. It's built in quiet mornings, in hard conversations, in the willingness to sit inside the discomfort together. It's seeing each other fully, even when it's messy, even when it's painful. Especially then. Paul and I, we're still here. For now. We had the hard talk. We let the truth bleed out between us like a wound we finally stopped ignoring. There's no tidy ending to this. No dramatic reconciliation or tragic goodbye. Just two people slowly learning how to find each other again, or maybe learning who they are now. Maybe we make it. Maybe we don't. But at least now, we're honest. Desire is fragile. Love is fragile. But honesty, brutal, humbling honesty, might be the only thing strong enough to hold it all together. I wish someone had told me that sooner. And if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt yourself drifting quietly in your own relationship, wondering why the simplest touches now feel so complicated, I hope you hear me when I say, you're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're just human. We are all longing for something deeper than we know how to ask for. And sometimes, it takes losing yourself to finally understand what it means to truly be seen.